Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, let's try to solve one more real SQL interview problem. This time, the problem was given to me by Harichandra. He faced this problem when he was giving an internship interview process in one of the data analytics firm. So straight away, let's look at the problem and try to solve it. So as you can see, this was a problem statement that was given for a data analytics intern position, and it was shared in a Word document. So first of all, I'm going to be reading through this problem statement. We'll try to understand what the requirement is, what the input data is, and then we will see what the expected output is. Once we understand the problem statement and the input data, only then we will start writing the query to solve this particular problem. So the problem statement reads, we conduct Olympiad exam for our partner schools every year to evaluate the standard of students. Here we have provided you with sample data for the exam. To get a proper insight about the exam, you need all the four tables. Data for all these four tables are given in a CSV file. So this is the four input tables that are given, and these four tables were provided through a CSV file. Now what I have done is I have already copied this CSV file into the tables. I have created these four tables and I have loaded the data into these four tables. Okay. So we have student list table, we have student response table, we have correct answers table, and then finally we have the question paper code table. Okay. Now let's try to understand these four tables. So here they are telling table 1 student list. It contains the list of students who attended the Olympiad exam from Google Public School. Okay. So if I go back to my PG admin tool and execute this student list table, you can see that I have around 241 records. So basically this is the information about 241 students. So you have their roll number, their name, which class they belong to, what is their section, and then the school name. Okay, so this is what is present in my student list table. Now if I go to my second table, that is student response, I can see that they have mentioned the Learn Basics Olympiad is an objective exam. Student response for every question was recorded in this table. Okay, so whatever exam the student has attended, the response that the student has given for every question is recorded in this particular table, that is student response. Okay, now if I go back here and if I just execute this student response table, you can see that I have roll number, then I have the question paper code, then there is a question number, and for each question what is the option that the student selected is present here. Okay, now if I go back here and if I read this additional 2 points that is given, they say that for every question there are 5 options, A, B, C, D and E are provided for every question. Okay, and then they are saying out of 5 options only A, B, C and D are the valid options. Student can pick E, basically choose E option when they think that they haven't learned the concept yet. So what this means is every question will have 5 options, but the correct answers will be either of A, B, C or D, and E is an option that a student can choose if basically they have not learned that particular concept. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Then we have table 3, that is basically the correct answers table. This table has the correct answers for all the questions in math and science. Okay, so if I go here and if I execute this correct answers table, we can see that we have question paper code, what is the question number and what is the correct option for that. Now if I go back to my table 4, that is question paper code, since we are dealing with 3 classes and 2 subjects, we are maintaining separate question paper code for each class and each subject. So what this means is if I go and execute my question paper code, you can see that I have I think 6 question paper code, and then each code belongs to a particular class and for a particular subject. Okay, so if I go back to my correct answers, here also I have a question paper code. So basically each question paper code will determine which class and which subject was this question paper for. So I hope these 4 tables you have understood what these are and what data these tables have. Now, before I can continue, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning community where you can find thousands of online classes related to almost any skill that you can think of. Now, personally, I have taken few different classes on Skillshare, and one of my favorite is the Notion Masterclass conducted by Ali Abdul. Now, Notion is a fantastic tool and I use it every single day, but there is a slight learning curve because there are so many different features and functionalities which you may need to use effectively to basically make the best use of Notion. And this is where the class conducted by Ali Abdul on on Skillshare definitely helped me. In his class, he starts from talking about how to set up Notion. He then talks about all the basic features like pages and blogs, etc. He then talks about some of the advanced concepts like how to use a database in Notion, and then he talks about templates in Notion and so much more. Now, similar to this particular class on Skillshare, there are so many different classes that you can use to learn so many different things. Now, the best part about Skillshare is that you can access Skillshare for free for up to 1 month by using my link, which I'll be leaving in the description below. Now, remember, only the first 1000 people who will be clicking on that link will get 1 month of free access. So definitely check out Skillshare, and thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's look at what exactly is required from us. So what they are saying is the objective is to validate the student response and present it in a single table with list of columns mentioned below using SQL. Okay, so required output table with column data. So what they're basically telling is use these 4 tables and then somehow do some aggregation or segregation or whatever you want to do it, and then for each student you need to provide these results, okay, or basically these columns. So what they're saying is the roll number, student name, which class they belong to, what section they belong to, and what is the school, and then you need to say how much did they score in math, how many correct answers they answered in math, how many wrong answers, how many math answers did they say yet to learn. So when I say yet to learn, it's basically if they choose the option E, that is they have not yet learned that concept, right? And that is what we need to count here. Okay, and then we have total math score and what is the percentage they scored, and the same thing we need to do for the subject science. Okay, and basically what we need to do is for each student we just need to have one record. Okay, so they have also shown us a sample output, as you can see here. So maybe I will just try to zoom this. If I zoom this, you can see that we have roll number and all of those columns. So section, school name, math correct, math wrong, math yet to learn, and everything. And here the data is for every student. So the first student here is Ada, and you can see all the information about that particular student. Okay, so this is basically what we are supposed to do. I hope this is clear. Now let's get back into our PG admin tool and we'll use these 4 tables to write a solution which is going to return us the expected output as shown here. Now, one more thing before I start writing my solution, I will be sharing the CSV files for these 4 tables as well as all the other scripts and everything else that I'll be using in this video in my blog. I'll leave the link to my blog in the description below. So definitely try to download the CSV file and all the other scripts and try to find your own solution. And once you have your solution, then come back to the video and see what my solution is. So now let's get back into PG admin and try to write our solution. Now, generally when I'm solving an SQL problem, I always try to break the problem into multiple different parts. I'm going to be doing something similar to that, but here what I'll do is, if I look at the input data that I already have seen here, and I understand what these data are, because in the student list table I have one record for each student, but for the student response table, because a question paper can have multiple questions, for each student there are multiple records, as you can see here. Okay, so we have 24,000 records here, right? 24,100, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I'll try to write a query, because these output, that is the roll number, student name, class, sections, and school name, these are pretty straightforward to fetch, right? So I'll try to join these 4 tables. Okay, maybe I'll start by joining the first 2 tables, and then I'll try to fetch whatever columns I can fetch pretty straightforward. And then I think for these columns here, we will need to do certain calculations, or we'll need to apply certain logic. So we'll try to fetch these columns a little later. So let's start. So first of all, I need the roll number, student name, class, section, and school name. These are the columns I need. And if I look at my student list table, I have data about all the students, and my student response table. So here I have roll number. In my student response table also I have roll number. So I think I can join these 2 tables using the roll number column. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll just copy this. I'll put it here. Okay. And I'll give an alias for this, let's say SL, and I'm going to join it with my student response table, and I'll paste it here, and I'm going to give an alias for this like SR, and here I'll say I'll join it using SR dot roll number is equal to SL dot roll number. I think this is the only column with which you can join these 2 tables, because this is the only 2 common columns in these 2 tables. So I'm just going to run this. And you can see I'm getting 24,000 records. Now it's going to be a little difficult to basically write or understand what we are doing when we have this much data. So what I'm going to do is, to make it more easier, I'm just going to take one particular student. Basically, I'm going to filter the query for one student, and maybe I will take the student, this one, that is 10159, right? So I'll just put a filter here telling that where roll, okay, so sr dot roll number is equal to 10159, right? Is it 10159? Yes. Okay, so when I'm basically trying to write this query, I'll just take one student and then I'll try to come up with my solution, and once the solution is ready, then I'll remove this filter, so we have the solution for every student. Okay, so now if I run this, I think I should be getting, yeah, I'm getting 100 records. Okay, and you can see that I'm getting a lot of columns, but I actually don't need all of these columns, so I'm only going to fetch the columns that I actually need for my problem. Okay, so if I go back here, the columns that I need are roll number, student name, class. So I'm just going to say sl dot roll number. Okay, and then I'll say sl dot student name, then I'll say sl dot class, then I'll say sl dot section, and what else do I need? So then I have the school name, so sl dot school name. Okay, so I think these are the only columns I needed initially, so I have fetched those columns. Of course, I'm getting multiple records, but we'll try to fix this when we try to join with other tables. Okay, so for now, I think I have got the first 5 columns that is required in the output. Okay, so the next thing that I need is I need the math correct. So when we say math correct, basically what this means is we need to know for each student how many correct answers have they given in their math exam, right? Now, how do I know that? So first of all, in order to find out if the answer is correct or wrong, I have the student response here. So for every question paper code and for every question, whatever option the student has marked is present in my student response table. And the correct answers table will have the correct answer for that same question number and for the same question paper code. So if I join student response with the correct answers, then probably I will be able to identify which is the right answer and which is the wrong answer. And if I count all the right answers, I should be able to get the math correct value. Okay, so what we will do is I'll try to join this table. So I'm just going to say join with the correct answers table, and I'm going to give an alias for this like CA, and I'll see how do I join them. So in my correct answers table, I have question paper code and I have question number. Okay, now remember, for each question paper code, there are multiple records because a question paper can have multiple questions, right? And the student response also, for each of this student, each of this question paper code, there are multiple records. So I cannot just join with question paper code. I also need to consider the question number, else I will get multiple duplicate records, right? So I'll try to do that. I'll say CA dot question paper code, okay, and I'm going to copy this, is equal to, let's say, sr dot question paper code. So if I just join with question paper code, previously I was getting 100 records. Now you can see I'm getting 5,200 records as shown here, right? Because each question paper can have multiple questions, and that is why there are a lot of duplicate records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another join condition, okay? And my second join condition here is going to be based on the question number. So I'm just going to say ca dot question number is equal to sr dot question number. Okay, so I'm just joining using question number. So maybe just to make it more visible, I'll just move this to the next line, and I think that should be enough. Okay, and now if I run this, now you can see that I'm just getting 100 records. Okay, so this is fine. It looks like we have joined these 3 tables properly. Now this is fine, but what we actually needed was to compare how many questions were correct and how many were wrong, right? So how do I do that? So just by joining these tables, we are just taking all the data that we need. Now using the data present in this table and this table, we will be able to identify how many were right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a case statement here, and I'm going to say that case when I'll say, okay, so if I go into my correct answers table, you have the correct options here, and in my student response table I have the options marked, right? So I'm just going to say if the options marked by the student, that is sr dot option marked, is equal to the correct option, that is ca dot what is the column name, it is correct option, right? So I'm just going to say correct option. Okay, if the option marked by the student is same as the correct option that is already given by the whatever, by the institute or something, then I can just tell it, I'll just put a value like 1. Okay, else if it is wrong, then I'll return 0, and I'm going to end my case, and I'm going to call it like, let's say, math correct. okay, because this is what the column that I wanted. Now there is one more thing that is missing, and that is I wanted for math correct. Now here I'm checking basically for every exam that the student has given. I'm trying to see if the answer that he has given is correct or wrong. Okay, here I also need to put a filter condition so that I only consider the math exams given for math subject, right? Now how do I do that? Right, if I want to know if the question paper code, so here if I go into my correct answers, I have this question paper code, but I don't know if this question paper was given for math or science, right? How do I identify that? I can identify that by using this particular table, that is the question paper code column. So here I can see that I have subject, math and science. I think easily I can filter by giving this name in the subject column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this last table. Here I'm just doing the inner join, okay, and I'm going to say this table question paper code, and maybe I'll just call it like PC, okay, for paper code, and I'm just going to do a join. So PC dot I have paper code is equal to the CA dot question paper code. Okay, so I think that just the paper code or the question paper code should be enough to join these two tables. Okay, now that is fine. But here when I'm basically trying to see how many math questions he has answered correctly, I want to filter, or basically I only want to check when the subject is math, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll move this to the next line here, and here I'm going to add another filter condition saying that, and or maybe I'll just add that filter condition at the very beginning. Here I'm just going to say that is I think PC dot subject is equal to math, right? So math, and this will make sure that only when the subject is math, and if the options choose by the student is same as the correct option, then I'll say 1, else 0. Okay, here I'll say and I think that's it for now. Let's see what happens. So if I execute this, now you can see that wherever the options are wrong, okay, we are not able to clearly see that. So what I'll do is I'll add 2 more columns just to make it more easy for everyone to understand. So I'm just going to copy this, and here I'll just add a comma, and now let me execute this. Now you can see that I have option marked A and correct option is also A, but still it is printing 0. So probably I would say that the subject is not math, it is some other, maybe the science subject. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to display the subject. Let's see what the subject is here. Okay, and now let me run this, and now you can see this is all for the, this data is all for the subject science. So we have a filter for math, right? So wherever it is math, and basically we'll see where it is 1. Okay, so here I have a record with 1, and here I can see that the option marked is B, the correct option is also B, and it is for math subject, hence here I have 1. Okay, so basically wherever the student has marked the correct option, basically for the math subject, here it will be displayed as 1. Okay, now I also want to add one more additional filter, because if I go back to my statement here, there is a problem statement. You can see that the correct answers are only A, B, C and D, right? E is an option a student can choose when basically he's not learned that concept. So basically if the student has marked E, I should not even consider them for any of these calculations, right? So just to make it more correct, I'm just going to add that filter condition. Here I'm just going to say SR dot option marked is not equal to E, because if it is E, basically we don't even have to check. Okay, so it's not capital E, I think it is in the lower case, so I'm just going to say E, as you can see here. Okay, so whenever the student has marked the option E, I don't need to do anything. Basically it should always return false, because if I go back here and if I look at, so I have math correct here, how many wrong answers are to be given here, and how many options basically is yet to learn, that is when the student has chosen E, I need to show the result here. So I have a separate column for that, so I don't need to consider those records in my math correct column. Okay, so that is why I added this filter. Now let me execute this, and I think I'm getting some output. I am hoping that there will be some correct answers, as you can see here. Okay, now this is fine, but for each student I have multiple records here, right? Now what I need is, for each student I want only one record, right? And when I'm getting one record, I should basically aggregate all the correct math answers, and then similarly I need to do for all the wrong answers and everything else, right? So how do I do the aggregation of this? So very easily I can do that, because I know that the roll number, student name, class, section and school name are always going to be the same. So if I just group the data based on these values, okay, so here if I just say group by these values, and then I don't actually need these columns. This is the columns that I added just for explaining purpose. And here I have my case statement. So whenever any record SQL is processing, if it sees that it is a math subject, if the options marked are same as the correct answer, and if it is not marked as E, then it's going to say 1, right? And if I do a sum of all of this, so I basically group the data based on all of these columns, and then if I do a sum of this case, and if I basically put the sum to the entire case, what happens is for all of these records here, how many ones are present, it's basically going to count all the ones together. So I will come to know how many correct answers were given. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now let me just execute this and see if it actually works. So now you can see that I have got just one record for ADA for one particular student, because here I have filtered just for one student, and you can see the math correct is 4. If I go back to my output here for ADA, you can see the math correct is 4. I am not sure if you're able to see it, but you can see math correct is 4, right? So I think this is correct. Now similarly, we'll try to find all the other columns that we need. Okay, so if I go back here, all the other columns that we need is, next we need is math wrong, right? So what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, I'll remove this because I don't need it. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it in the next line. Here we were trying to find for math correct. The next thing that we need is math wrong. How many wrong answers has the student given in math subject? So I can say that it should be for the subject math, and the option marked is not equal to, right? So that is fine. And then here also it should not be for E, because if it is E, then it's a separate thing that we need to calculate in the next column, right? I think that's all. Now let me just run this and see if it works. Here I'm getting math wrong 28. If I go back to my output, here it's also 28. So looks like that is correct. Now let's try to find the next column again. So once you have understood this much, I think the remaining solution is pretty simple. So I'm just going to do math yet to learn. I think this is the column name that they have given. Now, how do I identify how many options basically a student has given not yet to learn, right? That is when the option marked is E. So I'm just going to say equal to E, and it should be for the subject math, and I don't need this particular check here. So I'm just going to remove them. Okay, so I think that's all. Now if I just run this, you can see math yet to learn is 8, and if I go back down here, I have 8. So I think whatever we are doing is correct. So I think this query is going to be a little longer, so I'm just going to remove all of these unwanted things, and I think we have done this. What is the next thing that we need is math score. Okay, now math score is basically, what I understand is, basically there is no explanation given for what the math score is. So I'm assuming math score is basically how much has he scored in math. Okay, and I'm assuming that it's going to be the same as math correct. Okay, so math correct and math score should probably be the same value. Okay, so I'm just not going to be adding them here. And then the next one is math percentage. Okay, now I'll add math score a little later. I'll tell you why. Now let's try to find out the math percentage. So what is math percentage? So basically, how do you calculate percentage? So what I can say is, the total correct answers divided by total number of questions into 100 should basically give me the percentage, right? Now correct answers, I already have it here. Now I need the total number of questions asked in math, right? So how do I count the total number of questions asked in math? So again, I'm just going to copy paste this. Here I'm just going to say subject equal to math, and I think that's all. So if the subject is math, then I just want to print it like 1. So maybe I'll just move this to the next line. So if the subject is 1, then if the subject is math, then I say 1, else 0. So if I probably count all of this, or basically sum together all of this, I will be able to know how many math questions were asked. So if I execute this, now you can see that I'm getting 40. Okay, so 4 correct answers, 28 wrong answers. So 4 plus 28 is 32, and 8 yet to learn. So total 40, and that is exactly what I'm getting here. Okay. Now to find the percentage, I can just divide this, the correct answers divided by yet to learn, into 100 should give me the percentage. Okay. Now I will do that, but probably what I'll do is I'll put this entire thing into a CTE, and then in my main query, I'll try to do this calculation of the percentage. Okay, so basically we have got everything for the math subject. Now similarly, we need to do for the science subject here. Okay, so let's try to do that. Again, what I'll do is I'll just copy all of these columns. Okay, and I'll just paste them here. Okay, so here instead of math, I think my subject is science. So I'm just going to copy science here, science, and my column name also should be science, science wrong, science yet to learn, and science. Okay, so I think the last column is not yet to learn. It is, I'll tell total math questions. Okay, and the same thing should be here, total science questions. Okay, so I think that's all. Now if I just run this, now you can see that till here we have already seen. Next was science correct, I'm getting 11. Then science wrong is 38, and then yet to learn in science is 11. So 11 plus 11 is 22, plus 38 is 60, and total science questions is 60. Okay, so if I go back to my output, I think that is what I have here. So 11, 38, 11, 11, and okay, so I think this is exactly what we wanted. We are in the right path. Okay, I hope you are able to follow along in what I am doing. So now we have got almost everything except for the percentage column. So what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, I'll move this to the right, and I'm going to put this entire query into a CTE. So I'll just say with CTE as, and here I'll just move this to the right. Okay, so I'll just put this entire thing into the parenthesis. Okay, and then here I'll write my main query. So select from CTE. Now I still have this filter for a single student. I'm going to keep it. At the end, we'll try to remove this filter so we get data for all the student. Okay, now from here, what do I need to do is I need to fetch all the columns that I need. So I need all of these columns. Okay, but I don't need to use this alias SL. So I'll just remove that alias SL. So I'll remove that. Okay, so this is fine. What is the next thing that we need is we need the math correct. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that here, and then we need the math wrong. So I'll put it here, and then I think we need math yet to learn. Okay, and if I go back to my question, so after math yet to learn, I need math score, and I am assuming math score is going to be same as math correct because there is no explanation given what is the difference between math correct and math score in this particular problem statement. So here I'm just going to say math score. Okay, so math score, but I don't have a column like math score here anywhere, right? But I'm assuming that the math correct is basically going to be math score. So I'm just going to say math correct as math score. So I'm taking the same column, that is math correct, how many correct math answers has the student given, and I'm going to name it like math score. That is the total number of score. Okay, let's say each question has a score of 10 marks, then you can just multiply that by 10 and that would be the math score. But currently that information is not given in this problem statement. Okay, the next thing that we need to find is the math percentage. Now I told you that math percentage we can do a calculations, and I'm just going to be doing that. So how you can do that is I'll just tell math correct divided by total math questions. So total math questions is here. Okay, and then if I just multiply the whole thing with 100, I should be able to get my percentage. So this should be my math percentage. Okay, if I run this, now I'm getting math percentage as 0. I think this is something wrong because what is happening in pgadmin, or basically in the PostgreSQL database that I'm using here is, so math correct is 4 divided by the total math questions are actually 40. I'm not printing them here, but I know 4 divided by 40, probably it should be 0.1 or something. But since it's an integer, it's just returning the whole number 0. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to convert this into a decimal first so that it will be able to capture the decimal points. Okay, so here I'll just convert this into decimal. If you're using some other database, you may need to use cast or some other functions to do this conversion. Okay, so in PostgreSQL also I can use cast, but I can also do the same thing using this symbol here. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. And now if I run this, now you can see that the math percentage is 10.0000. There are too many zeros. So I'll just round this to 2 decimal points. I'm just going to say round of this whole thing, okay, to 2 decimal points. And now if I run this, now you can see that I'm getting the correct math percentage. Okay, so I think this is all fine. Now the same thing I need to do for the science subject. So I'm just going to copy them here, and here I'll just replace math with science. So science correct, and then science wrong, science yet to learn, science correct will be printed as science score. And then finally, to find the percentage, science correct divided by total science questions, and I will name the column as science percentage. Okay, so now if I run this, I think I'm getting the data for every single column. Okay, so every single column for a particular student. Now in order to get the data for every student, I'll just remove this filter condition. So I'll just remove this filter, and now if I run this, You can see that I am getting 241 records, and if you remember, we had initially 241 students, and for every student I'm getting one record with all the data or details about their marks in science and math is mentioned here. Okay, so this is basically my solution to the problem that was given. Okay, so I hope you like this video. If you have any feedback or if you have any other solution to the same problem, definitely share them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon in the next one. Bye.